There's a secret war happening right now, and it's being fought in farm fields all over the world. It's a hidden genetic arms race between our food crops and the diseases that are trying to kill them. And honestly, the outcome of this battle pretty much determines what ends up on all of our dinner plates. To see how high the stakes are, let's just hop back to 1970 for a second. A fungus, a silent killer called the southern corn leaf blight, just swept across the United States. In the end, it wiped out a whopping 15% of the entire nation's corn crop. And this wasn't just some bad luck. No, this was a full-blown genetic catastrophe, and it exposed a terrifying weakness in our food supply. And that event, it was a huge wake-up call. It was a stark reminder that this constant, high-stakes war is always being waged. On one side, you've got the plants with their incredible genetic armor. And on the other, you have these pathogens that are constantly, relentlessly evolving to try and break through those defenses. So the big question is, how exactly do plants fight back? What secret weapons are they hiding deep down in their DNA? Let's take a look at their arsenal.
Well, their first move is what you might call the silver bullet strategy. It's an all-or-nothing approach, and it relies on a single heroic gene to do all the heavy lifting.
Now, the sciencey term for this is Mendelian resistance. Basically, a single, really powerful gene acts like an on-off switch. If the plant has this gene, boom, it's immune. If it doesn't, it's in trouble. It's a beautifully simple and, often, a very powerful solution. Yeah, but here's the catch. This silver bullet has a pretty fatal flaw. While it's super effective and really easy for plant breeders to work with, it's also incredibly brittle. A pathogen only needs to evolve one little trick to get around it, and the whole defense crumbles. This leads to these devastating boom and bust cycles, where a crop goes from being invincible to completely defenseless, sometimes seemingly overnight.
Okay, so if the silver bullet can be such a dud in the long run, what's a better way? What's a more durable way for plants to protect our food?
Well, the answer is strength and numbers. Instead of betting everything on one champion gene, plants can build a much more complex, resilient defense network. We're talking multiple layers of protection.
And this brings us to what's called quantitative resistance. Instead of one superhero gene, think of it like an entire army of genes. Each one contributes just a little bit to the overall defense. So it's not a silver bullet, it won't give you total immunity, but it makes for a much, much tougher nut for any pathogen to crack.
All right, let's break this down. This table really lays it all out pretty clearly. You can see Mendelian resistance is controlled by one major gene, right? It gives you a simple on or off. You're either resistant or you're susceptible. But now, look at that durability row. For Mendelian, it's often low. Not great. Quantitative resistance, on the other hand, is controlled by many genes. It gives you a whole spectrum of resistance from low to high. But the real payoff, its durability is often much, much higher. That's the long game right there.
But here's the thing, it's not always one or the other. As this recent research on maize points out, these two systems can actually be combined. A plant can have that silver bullet gene as its first line of defense, but have this whole network of smaller genes as a more durable backup. It's a really powerful one-two punch.
Okay, so just when you think you've got the rules of genetics down, the plant world throws a total curveball. There's a third type of resistance out there, a kind of secret weapon that's passed down only from the mother. It's called cytoplasmic inheritance. We always think of DNA as being tucked away safely in the cell's nucleus, right? Well, it turns out these little energy factories in the cell's cytoplasm, the mitochondria and chloroplasts, they have their own DNA, and it follows a totally different set of rules. So how on earth does that work? Well, let's walk through it. Think of the mother's egg cell as being fully loaded. It's got the nucleus, sure, but it also has all this rich cytoplasm packed with those organelles. But the father's sperm, it travels light. It basically only contributes its nucleus. So what's the result? The new embryo gets its nuclear DNA from both parents, but all of its cytoplasm and the DNA inside it comes entirely from its mother. And this is where it gets crazy, because this brings us all the way back to that devastating corn blight of 1970. The fatal flaw, the Achilles heel, wasn't in the corn's main nuclear DNA, it was hidden in its cytoplasm. A specific trait, passed down from mother to offspring for generations, made millions of acres of corn incredibly vulnerable to that one fungus. It was basically a genetic time bomb just waiting to go off. And boy, did it ever. Okay, so plants have this whole arsenal of weapons, right? So how do breeders actually use this stuff to create super crops? Well, they need a playbook, a set of rules that tells them how these different genes will interact when they're combined. And this is the science of gene action. You can think of understanding gene action as being a kind of genetic matchmaker. You have to know which traits are going to combine to make the perfect kid. The simplest version is called additive action, and it's about as predictable as it gets.
So let's take a simple example. Imagine you have one parent plant that's, well, a total wimp when it comes to disease. Let's say it gets a score of 0. And then you have another parent that's basically a fortress, a solid 10 out of 10. You cross them, and what do you get? A hybrid that scores a perfect 5 right in the middle. It's the exact average of its parents. For breeders, that kind of predictability is absolute gold.
But of course, genetics is rarely that straightforward. Sometimes one gene just bosses the other one around, completely masking its effect. That's dominance. In other cases, you get a hybrid that's a superhero, even stronger than both of its parents. That's called overdominance. And then you have epistasis, which is when different genes start messing with each other's effects. It can get complicated, fast. But if you understand these rules, if you have the playbook, you can become a master strategist. You can pick the right parents and use the right methods to build crops that aren't just resistant for today, but truly resilient for tomorrow. All right, so let's quickly recap the big ideas. Plants have the silver bullet defense, strong but brittle. They have the resilient network, not as strong individually, but way more durable. There's the mother's secret, that wild card passed down outside the nucleus. And finally, breeders have the playbook of gene action, which gives them the rules to combine all these defenses effectively. You see, this whole genetic arms race, it's a marathon, and there's no finish line. As the pathogens keep evolving, our defenses have to evolve right along with them. The real question is, can we stay one step ahead? Can we actually outsmart evolution itself and create crops that are truly future-proof?